everyone, and welcome to Holistic Life with Kristen. Today, I wanted to talk about how to be a prepared host. When you are hosting people in your home, you want to make them feel as comfortable in your environment as you can. And so, if you just think back to any time you have been staying at a hotel or someone else's home, how did you feel? Did you feel comfortable? Did you feel like that was your home away from home? Or was there something missing? So when I am preparing for someone to stay in my home, be it friends or family, I do the best I can to reflect on the experience that I'm going to be giving the person who's staying here. And there's many things that go into this, even things you might not think of up front. So let's talk about one of the most important things. This is such a small and very critical detail for your guests when they're in your house. And just think about your own personal situation here when I'm talking about this. And that is getting the morning drink correct. That is the coffee or the tea, whatever, maybe lemon water, whatever your guests drink. And this honestly is such an important point that I would actually, if you do not already know your guests' preferences, if they've stayed with you before, chances are good you already know what they like. But if you don't, I would actually just reach out to them and just ask, what do you drink in the morning? Are you a coffee person? Are you a tea person? What kind of sweeteners and milks and creamers do you like? Because people usually have a strong preference on that. And there is just something about that morning drink that is just so crucial to your mood and feeling like you are at home. So although this is maybe not one that you think about often, I know if you think about yourself, you probably have pretty strong preferences on that. So I am making this video as I am preparing for my parents to come stay with me, my dad and my stepmom. And so my stepmom has a bit of an allergy that I know about. So I correct the issue on my toiletries to make sure that she doesn't have an allergic reaction to any of the products that I have, that she will be using, like detergents and all of the things that are centrally used in the home. So as I am making this video, I am actually making this video at a time when I am working on preparing my house for my parents to come stay. My dad and my stepmom will be staying with me for maybe up to close to a month this year. And so I actually just checked. I don't have, because I've been cutting sugar out of my life, I literally don't have any regular sugar. So I'm going to add that to my grocery list. I'm going to go get some of that before they get here. My husband uses Splenda, and I have stopped using sweeteners in my coffee. I just use I use like a lightly sweetened milk, a vanilla milk that is lightly sweetened that's low in sugar. So I just use that. I don't use any other sugar product. So I'm a little low, to be honest. So I'm gonna have to go get some sugar. And we do have Splenda because my husband likes Splenda, but neither one of my parents likes Splenda. So my stepmom prefers to have sweet and low specifically, and I know that. So when I go into town, I'm going to make sure I pick up a little bit of sugar and sweet and low. And I'll keep that on hand. And then we do use a vanilla milk, but I know that I happen to know that they prefer half and half. So I do already have some half and half that I picked up. I just forgot kind of about the sugar because I no longer really use very much sugar. So I just don't have it anymore. So that is a big thing. It's a really small thing that is a really big thing to most people. So that is one of the most critical things, to just get it right. Find out what they like. Most people aren't that fussy on the type of coffee or the type of tea, the brand. So, I usually personally just, I do have a pretty good selection of tea. I have a black tea, I have a green tea, I have some citrus teas, I have a chamomile tea. That's a lot of selection. Most people can work with that, along with at least one type of coffee. So that is usually plenty suitable, but those little things that go into the coffee, those are the things that people usually have strong preferences on one way or the other. So just know your guests, and if you're really looking to make a comfortable vibe for them, a home-like vibe, I would try to have those things available for them so that they can feel like they are at home in your home. So many things that goes into being a prepared host. And before someone stays in my home, I do my best to make it as comfortable and inviting and home-like for that person as I possibly can. So today I'm going to go through the typical preparations that I make in my home before my guests arrive. First of all, you do not want to have a short timeline. I usually start the planning process 1 week before my guests arrive. Because with 1 week of preparation, even if you are busy, 1 week should be plenty of time to gradually make the changes that need to happen before your guests get here. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to be stressed to the max right before your guests come, rushing around trying to get everything in line. It's better to take a 1 week period and slowly make the adjustments over that period of time so that you're not stressed. The one thing that I think holds people back is being stressed at the last minute to try to get everything all together. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So the reason why we want to leave 1 week for preparations and we want to plan is because it's ultimately going to make your life easier. It's going to help you feel less stressed. It's going to make your guests feel more welcome, and it's going to allow you to enjoy the time more with your family and friends. One of the biggest parts of hosting is preparing food. And so that means your kitchen should be in tip-top shape. So step number 1, when I'm going to have people in my home, is that I organize my kitchen. So this is a time when I go through all of my drawers and cabinets and I make sure that cups and plates and silverware and everything that they're going to be looking for while they're here is organized and easy to find, and also easy to get to. I also like to make sure that everything has a place and everything's in its place. We all know that if someone else in your household is putting away things, maybe doing the dishes, trying to put things away, sometimes things end up maybe not in its correct place. So my first step is always to just look through my kitchen and make sure that everything is where I expect to find it. And this way, I'm not fumbling around in the kitchen when people are here. I want to be able to be as efficient as possible while I'm in the kitchen because I don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I want to minimize the amount of time that I'm spending in my kitchen so that I can maximize the amount of time that I'm spending with friends and family. And furthermore is the pantry. Okay, we all know, let's be real, the pantry gets out of control sometimes. Things get thrown every which way. I try to be as organized as possible, and even my pantry ends up sometimes getting to be a bit of a mess. So you just have everybody in the household, everyone's hands are in there all the time and things are getting moved around, and it's a constant struggle to keep the pantry organized. So before my guests arrive, I always go through my pantry and I make sure there's nothing expired. I typically will pull everything out of the food pantry and I will check each and every item to make sure nothing's expired. If it is, get rid of it. If there's something that needs to get used up soon, we'll incorporate that into a meal. Again, goes back to efficiency because it's going to help you as the host to be more efficient in the kitchen. Food preparation is a necessary part of hosting, but you don't want to spend unnecessary time in the kitchen. You want it to be as efficient as possible so that you can enjoy your time because it is limited. Usually when someone is staying with you, it might be 1 to 3 days, it might be a week. Friends and family, maybe it's a little bit longer sometimes. Maybe you have extended stay guests in your house, whatever it might be. But you want to enjoy that time and you don't want to be fussing unnecessarily in your kitchen. Make sure it's organized and ready to go. That way you can feed your guests and not spend a bunch of extra time that isn't necessary in the kitchen. Try to make sure I have at least 3 days of meals planned and shopped, meaning I can prepare meals for my guests for at least 3 days without having to make a grocery store run. Because when guests first arrive, they want to be able to, they're probably going to be tired. Whether they arrive by plane, train, or automobile, they are going to be tired and they're going to want to settle into the house and settle into the space, and they are going to need something to eat. That's going to be an immediate need. And so you want to be prepared and not have to run to the grocery store because you want to be able to spend the time with your guests. You want to be able to help them settle in. And maybe they have something that they'd like to do right off the bat. Maybe they want to go somewhere and they want to partake in some type of activity. And you don't want to have to be running to the grocery store because that is going to be taking away from the time that you have to visit. So just make sure in that 1 week preparation period that planning and shopping the groceries is part of the plan. So besides the kitchen, when I'm having guests in my home, the next place that I want to put my attention is on the guest room and bathroom where they will be staying. So the way that I approach this is that I walk into the room and I look around and I remove any unnecessary clutter. If you're anything like me, and I'm sure we've all done this, is that when people are not staying with us, our guest rooms tend to turn into a bit of a storage area. If there's something that you immediately don't know what to do with, you tend to stick it in there and, okay, I'll put it away later. Or maybe like during the holidays, maybe there's Christmas gifts in there. That's what I tend to do, or birthday gifts if someone's birthday is coming up, or it could be anything. Anything that's kind of in progress tends to end up in the guest room for me. And I'm sure that all of you are sort of similar to that. I try to make all of the flat surfaces in the bedroom clear so that they have space to put their belongings. I try to make as much room on the floor as I can, especially since our guest bedroom, this house was built in the 80s. The room sizes are a little bit smaller. And I try to maximize the flat surface and floor space to the best of my ability to give my guests the maximum amount of space for them to have their belongings. And that is basically going to increase their comfort, because if they have to spend a lot of time trying to maneuver things around, it's going to be tiresome and tedious. And it's really not going to be feeling like home. Also, I try the best I can. I have about 2 drawers worth of space, and I try to clear out, make sure I have at least a couple of empty drawers so that they have some place besides the flat surfaces and the floor. They also have a couple of drawers in the bedroom, and also I try to make a little bit of space in the closet for them to hang up some clothes. Because that way, they don't have to just, for one thing, wrinkles, they don't have to worry as much about wrinkles. They can have sort of a regular access to things, open a drawer, open a closet, everything's hanging there for them. It's more easy for them. It's more like a home experience, because when you're living at home, you do not go to your suitcase. You typically would go to your closet, you would go to your drawer. So my goal is always to create that same experience for my guests. And so they don't have a whole household full of stuff, but they do have maybe a suitcase or two. And at least they can have a place to keep maybe at least a couple of drawers and a little bit of closet space to put their things so that they feel like they're at home. Okay, besides that, I will also make sure I do a nice dust, because honestly, we don't spend a lot of time in the guest room when it's not in use. So typically there is going to be some dust. So besides making removing clutter and making sure the flat surfaces and the guests have a little bit of room to put their personal things, I also like to go through the room and quickly dust and sweep and wash the bedding. So this will give the room a fresh feeling. And so whenever I'm having someone over, I like to make sure the room is freshened up by dusting, sweeping, and making sure that the bedding is fresh. I also like to stock the room with a few essentials. One of them being a lint roller in case, for laundry purposes, or we have pets, and sometimes even our guests have pets. So there's always pets involved in a stay. And so I like to make sure there's a lint roller and some body lotion and an extra wall outlet charge for their phone cords. I like to have one of those in there just in case they forgot or they need an extra one. That way it's available if they need it. Another thing that I do that might not be something you think of right off the bat is I always like to leave a nightlight in either their room or the bathroom, because this way they will be able to plug in a nightlight, whether it be in the room or whether it be in the hallway or whether it be in the bathroom, because they are not used to staying in your home. And when it's dark and you're somewhere that you're not familiar with, it's a little bit hard sometimes. It can be difficult to get around in the middle of the night. So I like to leave night lights. I like to leave at least 1 or 2 night lights that they can place wherever they need. Maybe typically in the hall or the bathroom is probably the most likely place that they're gonna put a night light. But if children are staying, maybe they want a night light in the bedroom. So just to have a couple of night lights that they can place as needed to help them navigate in the middle of the night. And before my guests arrive, I will always try to spend at least a little bit of time, whether it's an hour watching TV in the room. Ideally, I like to spend about 1 night sleeping in the room. And the reason is because I don't normally sleep in that room. And so there could be little things that you're not aware of, such as airflow in the room. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? How is the lighting? Are there enough fans? Are there strange noises from like the laundry room or anywhere else in the house that just sounds uncomfortable? I just like to get an idea of the ambience of the room, just to try to figure out how it would feel for someone to stay in that room, to sleep in that room, to spend a bit of time in that room, just to make sure there's nothing I need to address before they get here. So after the kitchen and the guest room are organized, I also like to have a quick look at the bathroom. Again, I always like to keep at least 1 nightlight in the bathroom in case they need it to navigate at night. I also double check to make sure that the hand soap bottle is refilled and make sure that they have a fresh, clean towel. I like to go through the linen closet and make sure that that's well organized, make sure everything's in its right place so that people can find toilet paper and paper towels and the necessary washcloths and towels and hand towels that they need. While they're staying here, it'll be easy for anyone, even if you don't normally stay in the house, you'll be able to find whatever you need. You'll be able to locate it easily. And that I have at least some basic toiletries in there, such as shampoo, conditioner, hand lotion, and toothpaste. I also, like to do a good clean of the guest bath and make sure it's clean and tidy. Again, I remove everything unnecessary from the surfaces. I want to leave as much space, especially since my guest bathroom is really not all that big. I want to maximize the amount of space that I do have so that my guests have space to put their things when they get here. Sometimes people will forget like toothpaste or, so it's handy to have at least some extra toiletries that they could use in a pinch if they didn't remember to bring something or if they don't have something. Because again, my goal is always to avoid having to run to the store the second that they arrive, because you want to be able to spend that time settling in and enjoying their company and enjoying the time. And you're not going to be able to do that if you have to run to the store right away to get something silly that you could have maybe anticipated that they would need. Also, I do have a toothbrush holder, and I make sure I put that out, because that way, everybody's going to bring their toothbrush. They're going to need a place to put it, and it's very handy if they can just store it upright in the toothbrush holder and it's not just laying all over the sink. And when I am expecting guests in my home, I like to do a very thorough clean. And this might sound obvious, but this is a big one. And the reason is because you're going to have more traffic in your house than what you're used to. You're going to have more people coming in and out with dirty shoes and possibly additional pets. And you want your house to be at a very good baseline clean from the moment they arrive, because your house is going to survive for much longer and you're going to have to put a lot less effort into maintaining it, the cleanliness, if it's clean from the start. So I always make sure that I do a deep clean before my guests arrive. Baseboards, windowsills, blinds. I like to get it as clean as possible at the cleanest possible point. And one is that cleanliness is going to help with comfort for your guests. But aside from that, it's going to help you survive all that additional dirt that's just bound to be in your house from having extra people and possibly extra pets, from having that extra traffic in your house. I would say that if you clean your house very well before your guests arrive, your house is probably going to survive at least a week, maybe 2, depending on how many people and pets you've got, before it needs another clean. And that will probably 1 to 2 weeks will more than likely get you through the entire visit, or at least maybe half of the visit. My parents, actually the reason why I'm doing this video is because my parents are coming to stay with me. They might stay like upward toward a month. So that means I do the deep clean before they get here. Maybe about 2 weeks into their stay, I will do another deep clean, and that will be it, and that will minimize, again, that will minimize the amount of time that I need to spend cleaning. That will maximize their feeling of comfort while they're staying in my home, and that will maximize the amount of time that I can spend enjoying their company while they're here and not have to fuss with cleaning. And along those lines, because I have pets, the cat, I don't worry too much because cats bathe themselves. They always smell nice. They are always pretty clean. I might just brush my cat, but I always give my dog a bath. And again, that is just to, get rid of any excess hair and to make the atmosphere as clean as possible. And that cleanliness just makes everyone so much more comfortable. And last but not least are all of these special considerations, depending on who they are, might be. In my case, I often host Pakistani people in my house, and I know that I keep something like this in the bathroom to use instead, because I know that water is preferred in place of toilet paper for, Pakistanis and even some other Asians, and I frequently host people like that in my house. If your guests have skin allergies, maybe to detergents or soaps or toilet paper products, you can, in extreme circumstances like that, you may want to consider purchasing a special product if you have someone who has an allergy of some sort. Furthermore, if you have guests with babies, sometimes they require special laundry detergents. If your guest is going to be doing laundry in your house, skin allergies and babies who need special products would be a consideration. Also, safety if they have small children or toddlers, electrical outlet safety, cabinet safety, to make sure you have proper latches and covers on the outlets just to reduce your stress and improve safety. And it will just make the stay so much more comfortable if you take those special little things into consideration depending on who your guests are. Another super important consideration is pets, both your pets and potentially your guests' pets. You need to consider them. I would always consider them before my guests visit. So before my guests visit, I would make sure to explain to them that I have a dog and a cat. If for some reason they're terrified of pets or they don't like pets or whatever it is, that would be a situation where I would arrange for them to stay at a nearby hotel and then have them come over for some periods of time where I could put my dog, say, in her bedroom and she would be okay for a little bit. Okay, but for me, my pets are important enough that I would not lock my pets up for days and days and days because of my guests. Arrangements around my pets. They are someone who lives in my home and they have a right to be in my home. And I want them to pretty much continue their normal life. There might need to be some adjustments, but they need to be reasonable. And that is my personal preference. So what I would recommend to you is to assess your own preferences around that. because your opinions might not be the same as mine, and so your home needs to be managed the way that you see fit. But as for me, that's the way I would handle overnight guests who are not comfortable with my pets. However, I do put my pets up when my guests first arrive, and here's why. First of all, your guests are going to be coming in. The door is going to be open because they're going to have a bunch of stuff coming with them. They're going to have suitcases and bags and maybe even another pet, and so I like to have my pets put back secured in the house, so that I know they can't slip out the front door when I'm bringing everything in, when everything's being brought in. There's lots of people coming in and out. There's lots of stuff coming in and out, and I don't want my pet to accidentally go out without somebody realizing it, and somebody may not realize it. So for that reason alone, I like to just secure my pets as my guests are coming in the house. Second of all, your guests are going to need time to get their stuff in and get their suitcases in their bedroom and get settled. And especially also if they have pets, most real life pets are not perfect. They get anxious. If a dog is coming to stay in my home and they are anxious, that's a normal reaction for any typical dog, to be anxious upon arrival. So it's wise, in my opinion, to not have a bunch of extra commotion. So I prefer, for that reason, also to secure my pets, and allow the guest pet to come in and try to acclimate themselves to the surroundings and get comfortable. And once that pet is comfortable and calm, then try to introduce all the pets together, and bring everybody together so that you can stay harmoniously together. So I know some people get, really upset about having to, secure their pets, and it is not something I think, so you have to gauge your own comfort level with that. But as for me, I'm okay with securing my pets for a couple hours to have people in my home who are nervous about pets, because I don't want to have a situation where, something happens because they're scared, and then the dog is scared, and, bad things can happen. So it's better, but I also would not want to have people in my house overnight if they're not comfortable with my pets.